I was picking Walter up from preschool a couple weeks ago. And at Walter's school, the parents of preschoolers enter the building and the classroom for pickup and drop-off. And this is a little inconvenient, a little time-consuming, but mostly it's heartwarming because you get to go inside a school, a terrific school, and you get to see the energy and love and affection of a community that cares for one another. I walk into Walter's school and there are flags on the walls of all the imaginary countries the kids have visited. There are castles built out of cardboard. It's wonderful to be there. On this particular day, I was picking up Walter, and when I went in, I noticed a little girl, one of Walter's classmates, was crying softly. And the teacher was standing right next to her, and it seemed like an ordinary moment. But then the little girl put her hands close to her mouth, and she began vomiting everywhere. And I think just by reflex, she had put her hands next to her mouth to try and catch or contain whatever was coming out, but she couldn't. And of course, it was falling through her hands. And then another round of vomit came. It was so much volume from such a little person. But the teacher who was standing next to her, Mr. First Name, the paraprofessional, he didn't wince or flinch. He didn't screw his face up in disgust. He just kept standing next to her. And he put his hand on her back and he walked her so calmly to the sink as vomit trailed behind them. You want to talk about poise and excellence? I overhear my wife Holly working from home in the basement on these important calls with her Fortune 500 or Fortune 50 or whatever the business is that she works for. Some of the meetings that she's in, I think there are some important people in these meetings. People that are so important they refer to the CEO as Brian. I don't know if they're just pretending or not, but they sound very important. I have a hard time imagining these people who are probably paid 10 or 20 times as much as Mr. First Name, the guy standing next to the sink with the sick little girl. I have a hard time imagining them displaying a level of poise and calm like that. I mean, shoot, I'm a pastor in the caring profession. I was standing about 20 feet away from this little girl, and when she started throwing up, I kind of moved back. I didn't want to get my shoes dirty. If this is upsetting to you, to hear a story of such inappropriate character on such a holy night in such a holy place, well, you could all just go sit with Peter and the disciples at the table. They're disgusted too. Look at our artwork on the front of our bulletin. There's Peter, and his hands are folded, but I think he is grimacing based upon what he says in the scripture that Brooke just read. Peter's not in the slightest happy about what is going on. My favorite disciple is the person who has both hands on their head at the table, utterly disgusted by what's going on. Foot washing is disgusting. Well, I've attacked everyone in this pew, so I'll just keep going on down the line. My parents are in church this evening with us. This is not their home congregation. They are ardent churchgoers, my parents are. They never miss a service at their home congregation, and worship at my parents' home church is serious business. The services last about 90 minutes. They sing every verse of every hymn. There's communion every Sunday. My parents go to every service there, even the obscure festivals that happen in the middle of January on random weeknights. My parents are there for those services. My parents do it all except for foot washing. At my parents' church, they do foot washing on Maundy Thursday. And when it's time for foot washing, my parents, who do everything else and never miss a service, stay in their pew. Now, Mom and Dad told me that they're here at this church tonight because they had a midday conflict that prevented them from attending the noontime Maundy Thursday service at their church. But I think that they are just here to avoid foot washing. They can't stand it. Well, when you're young, you're passionate. You've got causes, you stand up for things. And when I was an even younger pastor, which I guess would have just been about a year ago, I thought that we should do foot washing here at the Congregational Church of Excelsior. Of course, you wouldn't have to wash one another's feet. My idea was that I would wash your feet. I thought that this is something that a pastor ought to do, ought to be willing to do. You should not be a pastor if you will not wash your people's feet. I remember I had a conversation with a teaching pastor of mine once. It was about sitting with people at their bedside. And I remember talking to him and explaining a visit that I had just had. And I said, well, I held the person's hand and we sang together. And I remember my teaching pastor said, well, I've never really been able to hold someone's hand like that. And I thought, so hold someone's hand or wash someone's feet. You should be able to do that. So I wanted to do that here. Not to prove a point, to make a statement, but I mean, come on. Foot washing is gross. You wouldn't have wanted me to do it anyway. And it's so impractical. How long it would have taken. You would have slowly walked up here and found a spot, and then you would have taken off your socks and then your shoes, and what if you're wearing pantyhose? And then you have to put the socks back on your still kind of wet feet, which is very hard, and then the shoes, and then the tying of the shoes. If we did foot washing here, that would be the whole service. There would be no time for hymns or scripture or preaching. It would be a 60-minute service of unsatisfactory hygiene that would not get you off the hook for the shower that you would still need to take at the end of the night when you got home. So another Maundy Thursday service is passing here, and we're not washing feet. Jesus is very clear, though. We should be washing feet. He says, so if I, your teacher and Lord, have washed your feet, then you ought to wash one another's feet. No foot washing here tonight. No foot washing here probably ever. Mom and Dad, you can come next year too. It'll be safe. That's probably a relief to all of us, I think. We can overlook the particulars of Jesus' directions tonight. Tonight isn't really about foot washing. No point would have been proven if this overexuberant young pastor of yours insisted upon tearing off your shoes and socks and washing your feet, whether or not you liked it. The only thing that would have been in service of would have been a pastor's ego. And that's never the point of Jesus' teachings. So tonight isn't about foot washing, but it's still about something gross. Love. Jesus says, tonight I give you a new commandment. Right after he washes his disciples' feet. Tonight I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you ought to love one another. And there's no getting around it. Love is gross. If you've ever cared for a child, or someone who's sick, or someone who's dying, you've probably been around them when things have come out of their body. Things that smell. Things that get on you. Clean the bed, clean the couch. The next day, oh, there's still a spot on the floor. I missed it. I think that these are good experiences, though. They draw us to the baseness of human life, what we all are. They're good experiences, and the people we're next to, who handle us well, who care for us, they handle this calmly. A friend of mine is a doctor, and sometimes when we're together, we'll be planning to eat good food or having a good drink, and then she'll share some details about a procedure she's just performed just a couple days ago. And when she says that, the food and the drink never sounds that good to me anymore, but she doesn't blush in the slightest. She's perfectly calm about it. She's a great physician. Jesus, of course, was also a healer, also known as the great physician. But I think a great physician in the year 2023, I think about someone who has completed a tremendous amount of schooling and then is now ascended to a position of relative comfort, a job that they go into clean and leave clean and do a lot of golfing, a radiologist perhaps. I don't think of someone who goes to work in family medicine, who regularly encounters excrement, who washes feet. So this bold and brave God of ours, this God who washes feet despite our fiercest protestations, it's a nice thought in the abstract, a nice story to read about in John's 13th chapter, but when it becomes personal, when it's about our feet, when it's about our filth, then I don't want to move. Then I want to stay in my pew. Then I don't want to come to church. Then I want to say exactly what Peter said tonight. Lord, you will never wash my feet. 10 years ago, I worked as a chaplain in hospice care. It was a summer job. And doing good chaplain care, I learned, is about developing a relationship with the people that you're caring for, the people who are in hospice care, but then it's also about getting to know the people who are closest to them, the people who love them, their families. And I got to know one older woman that summer who was in hospice care, and I got to know her daughter too. And I remember I had one conversation with her daughter, and she said, Jonathan, I want to tell you two things that my mom really worries about. First, she worries about where she's going to go when she dies. And second, she worries about people seeing her naked. And I said, I worry about both of those things myself. I think in a place like this, most often we think about that first worry, but I don't think that second worry is all that far away. Because who of us wants to be seen so plainly, so nakedly? Our pile of day-old soiled clothes on the floor right there. Lord, you will never wash my feet. God, please don't wash my feet. Jesus, if you wash my feet, I'm not coming to church. But we can't run from it. God washes our feet. God sees us plainly. God sees us naked. But God doesn't flinch. God doesn't recoil. God doesn't go golfing instead or call in the custodian to clean up the mess that we've made upon ourselves and upon the world. Instead, God just stoops down before us and cleans us up and says, It's okay. You're not a problem. This isn't a problem. Now go ahead and love one another, just as I have loved you.